Hello and welcome. I'm Geeta Mohan and you're watching India Today Global. The top story this evening: ousted Prime Minister of Bangladesh Sheikh Hasina is now convicted and sentenced to death. At the heart of it is the anti-quota student protest that rocked Bangladesh in June and July of 2024. Meanwhile, Bangladesh has demanded that India extradite Hasina, else it warns of enmity. Watch this report on how the entire saga unfolded.
78-year-old Sheikh Hasina Wazid is once again in India. In her second exile, she is a fugitive convicted in absentia to death by a court in Dhaka for crimes against humanity. The ousted Prime Minister of Bangladesh has been barred from contesting. Her party, Awami League, is banned under Anti-Terrorism Act. Night before the verdict, in an audio message to her supporters, Sheikh Hasina has already rubbished all charges brought against her.
আপনারা জানেন যে সেই কোর্টে চিফ প্রসিকিউটর আমার বিরুদ্ধে যে সমস্ত অভিযোগ এনেছে তা সবই তো মিথ্যা। একটা কোর্টে দাঁড়িয়ে কেউ যদি মিথ্যা অভিযোগ দেয় তা তার বিরুদ্ধে কিন্তু মামলা হয় এবং একসময় হবে। তবে এই কোর্টটাও তো অবৈধ, কারণ 1973 সালে পার্লামেন্টে আইন পাশ করে যুদ্ধ অপরাধীদের বিচারের জন্য এটা করা হয়েছিল।
In June 2024, students of Bangladesh erupted in protest against the Supreme Court of Bangladesh's decision to reinstate the 30% reservation quota for descendants of freedom fighters. This reversed the earlier government decision to remove this reservation in response to the quota reform movement of 2018. When students refused to back down, Sheikh Hasina, in one of her public addresses, accused them as Razakar descendants. The use of the most hated word in Bangladesh, Razakar, meaning those who helped the perpetrators against the freedom fighters during Bangladesh's Mukti Juddho, made students' protests grow in intensity. If the grandchildren of Mukti Jodha can't qualify for reservation, is it to be given to Razakars? Hasina's government allegedly let police and security forces violently crack down on protests, leading to the death and imprisonment of hundreds. The death of the 25-year-old Abu Said from Rokeya University in Rangpur became a symbol of the protest as he stood in defiance, spreading his hands, inviting police to open fire on him. He was shot at and declared brought dead in the hospital. The student protest became anti-Hasina and aimed at ousting her from power.
Here the most sensitive thing is the matter of the students. We must make sure that they won't get harmed. We have tried by the efforts of our police and all our forces. When arson started, the protesting students said they were not involved in it, and we condemn it. We don't want it. When they pulled off from the protest, I deployed the army. Only then did I deploy them. I did not do it before that, before the students pulled off from the protest. Many accuse me of deploying army against the students. I myself was involved in student politics. My politics started from Dhaka University. I know what the army could do. Shabir, the student wing of the Jamaat-e-Islam, BNP, and Jamaat together are behind all these incidents and murders.
Dhaka turned into a battleground. And finally, on 5th August 2024, Sheikh Hasina had to flee Dhaka and seek refuge in India. When asked if she wants to do things differently in a text interview to India Today from an undisclosed location, the exiled and now convicted Bangladesh Prime Minister did agree that she failed to read the emotions of the students. She said, and I quote, "Every leader with the benefit of hindsight can identify decisions they might have approached differently. Looking back, I recognize that certain grievances, particularly around government job quotas, could have been addressed through more extensive dialogue and engagement. We had mechanisms in place for this. As we had shown in the past, But perhaps we could have acted more swiftly. If the situation had not deteriorated, we would also have been able to complete the independent inquiry we launched immediately after the first casualties. This was extinguished by Yunus when he seized power. But I regret that we were not able to give the bereaved families of those who tragically lost their lives the answer they deserve. Sadly, the so-called investigations that have been undertaken by the interim government have just been scapegoating exercises aimed at discrediting the Awami League for narrow political purposes." Unquote. Sheikh Hasina was once celebrated as the torchbearer of democracy in Bangladesh. But her 15 years as the Prime Minister has been tarnished with the blood of innocent students. And the septuagenarian leader stands at the worst crossroad of her life today. With everything that she, her father, Bongo Bandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, her party Awami League had built since Bangladesh was formed, is now being dabbed in black by her fellow countrymen, to be marked out in Bangladesh's history as the darkest of all. Bureau Report, India Today.
Professor Ayanjit Sen, Bangladesh expert and chief advisor, Red Lantern Analytica, joins me for a detailed discussion on what's happening on the ground, how does it impact India. Professor Sen, the fact that there's an extradition treaty between India and Bangladesh, how will that impact? There's a caveat on political leaders. Does that apply? Should India really be considering Bangladesh's request?
Thank you, Geeta. See, there are a lot of, it's not as easy as a kind of an advisor coming on television and just saying over there that we want Hasina back. Because there are a lot of procedures. First of all, the Bangladesh interim government, so to say that, because remember, it's an unconstitutional regime. And first of all, this kind of an unconstitutional regime cannot ask for extradition under the international laws. And even if it does, it has to send all details, evidences to India, and then India examines it, and then probably a court case is filed in India, and then lawyers from all sides are represented. So evidences are examined. It's a long process. It's not that as easy as it seems for the Yunus administration, because it has been just trying to play to the gallery at the moment. It's what happened today in the ICT was nothing but just like a cricket match where the batsman, bowler, umpires, fielders, it's all on the same team. So it's just like a got-up game.
Okay, then let's zoom out a little. Let's talk about the fact that how does it help India to have, does India risk a lot to have Sheikh Hasina in India? Or more so to ensure that for a future of Awami League in Bangladesh, India should continue pursuing the road of restoration of Awami League as a political party, because there's no other option for India and Bangladesh.
Well, from a geopolitical perspective, for India, Bangladesh is not just a neighbor, but strategically a very important country. From that perspective, if we see, then one thing is very important, that we need to be with whom we were right from the word go in 1971. That's the Awami League party. And from that perspective, I think there's very little chance that India will give back Hasina to Bangladesh. And under the legal terms and conditions that are existing right now in the international stage, it's next to impossible. And we have seen how the last 14 months have gone as far as the relationship between India and Bangladesh has gone, and it's not in at their best at the moment. And it's just not having an extradition treaty in place. But at the same time, political offenses and lack of government faith, there are several factors. So it's not that easy to give Hasina back to Bangladesh.
Absolutely, exactly the point. And you might want to weigh in on what happened in that verdict announcement that was made today, wherein the Pakistani army was hailed as a glorious army. That clearly shows the allegiance that this administration and Dhaka now holds Pakistan in very high regard. Against Mukti Bahini, they said Sheikh Mujibur Rahman created Mukti Bahini against the very glorious Pakistan army.
That's very right, because one thing I think substantiates the entire thing. First thing is that this order, when it was pronounced today, an hour before, from then onwards, it was publicly broadcast not just in Bangladesh, but in certain places in Pakistan, in Lahore and Karachi. So that tells you the story as to where and how the relationship between the current regime of Bangladesh and the Pakistani government is going, because visa is free, and from all perspectives, they're pushing in terrorists, including two major groups, two major terrorist organizations, which are right now in Bangladesh as we speak, along with the different Bangladeshi outfits as well. So that clearly says that it's kind of becoming a terror hotbed, not just from our northern side, but also on our eastern side as well.
Right. Professor Oyanjit Sen, thank you so much for joining us. Do keep joining us on this show to share your perspective. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Now, ally, fugitive, or geopolitical pawn? From students' protests that toppled Sheikh Hasina to the controversial death verdict, India faces a historic dilemma. Protect a long-time partner or respect Bangladesh's new regime? What will India do? Watch an excerpt of Statecraft where we uncover the implications for India, Bangladesh and South Asia. Full episode is available on India Today Global's YouTube channel.
We have decided to inflict her with only one sentence, that is sentence of death.
Bangladesh has crossed a line no one imagined, a death sentence for Sheikh Hasina in absentia, the woman who ruled for over 15 years and kept extremism in check. A nation that once stood as a beacon of economic growth and political stability is now convulsing with protests, Islamist resurgence, and communal unrest. And now the crisis reaches India. Sheikh Hasina is on Indian soil. With an extradition treaty linking Dhaka and New Delhi, the stakes are enormous. Does India give her up or protect her, knowing that the decision will shape the future of South Asia's political landscape for years to come? Hello and welcome. You're watching Statecraft with me, Geeta Mohan. Bangladesh is living through the most volatile moment since its birth in 1971. A nation once defined by its fight against extremism and its rapid economic rise is now staring at a political earthquake. The death sentence handed to former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and former Home Minister Asaduzzaman Khan Kamal. But to understand how Bangladesh reached this moment, we must return to the spark that lit the fire. The student uprising that spiraled into a national revolt and tore through the country's political foundation. What began as a protest over job quota discrimination, a technical bureaucratic issue, erupted into a generational war against Hasina's governance. Students flooded the streets in Dhaka, Chittagong, Rajshahi, and Sylhet. Within days, campuses turned into conflict zones. As clashes intensified, several young protesters were killed, deaths that transformed an economic grievance into a moral revolt. Bangladesh, a nation with a history of uprisings, had reached its breaking point. Hasina's government responded the only way it knew, with force. Tear gas blanketed university gates, armored vehicles rolled through Dhaka's busiest roads, and in scenes that shocked the region, police opened live fire on campuses. Photos of students with bullet wounds, teenagers beaten and dragged away, spread faster than the government could control. The moral authority of Hasina, once credited with ending decades of instability, collapsed almost overnight. But street protests alone cannot topple a leader as entrenched as Sheikh Hasina. Her political machinery, her bureaucracy, and above all, her security establishment had kept her in power for 15 years. What changed was the silence and then the fracture inside Bangladesh's security system. As protests intensified, senior officers in key units appeared to pull back. Decisions that once required minutes suddenly took hours. Orders went unanswered. Some insiders insist this wasn't simple hesitation, it was influence. And that influence, many claim, came from abroad. For years, Washington, headed by Biden administration at that time, was uneasy with Hasina's tilt toward Beijing, from Chinese-funded mega projects to military cooperation. But the real flashpoint was St. Martin's Island, a small coral island in the Bay of Bengal with massive strategic weight. The US wanted access. Hasina refused. Not once, not twice, every time. In a nation where extremism once cost thousands of civilian lives, this resurgence triggered alarm bells, and history repeated itself. As with every moment of political breakdown in Bangladesh, minorities, especially Hindus, became immediate targets. Within days, temples were desecrated, shops were looted, villages were attacked under the cover of political chaos. Hindus, already down from nearly 30% of Bangladesh's population in 1947 to under 8% today, once again found themselves fleeing their homes. The social fabric Hasina maintained through strict policing was beginning to tear. The tribunal verdict that followed, sentencing Sheikh Hasina to death for crimes against humanity, came at a moment when Bangladesh was already off balance. Critics argue the trial was fast-tracked, shaped more by the politics of the new order than by evidence. Many view it as an attempt to erase Hasina's legacy, to portray her not as a former leader but as a pariah. In a publicly released statement, Hasina said that the verdict announced against her was biased and politically motivated.
Everyone knew this sentence was predetermined. These trials were rushed. I mean, it's a historic trial, and they finished it in 2 months, 3 months. This is an unelected, unconstitutional, undemocratic government.
And now the crisis arrives at India's doorstep. Hasina is on Indian soil. India and Bangladesh share an extradition treaty that mandates cooperation, except in cases where charges are political or where the accused faces persecution, unfair trial, or the death penalty itself. In Hasina's case, all these conditions apply. India's legal framework gives New Delhi the right to deny extradition, but geopolitics rarely obey legal logic. For over a decade, Hasina was India's most reliable partner in South Asia. She dismantled terror networks operating against India, cracked down on ISI-linked groups, curbed infiltration, and strengthened regional connectivity. Hours after the verdict, India's Ministry of External Affairs said it will engage constructively with all stakeholders considering peace, democracy, and stability in the neighboring country. As Sheikh Hasina waits, isolated, hunted, condemned, a single truth hangs over every corridor of power in South Asia. Her death sentence may not calm Bangladesh. It may ignite forces far more dangerous than the ones that drove her out. External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar met his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in Moscow. Both the ministers discussed issues ranging from political to economic and regional. The meet also comes ahead of Russian President Vladimir Putin's visit to India early December. The meet is also crucial as US has slapped additional tariffs on India for purchasing Russian oil. The US had earlier accused India of fueling Russian war machine. It also comes as US President Donald Trump said he will likely visit India next year. India continues its trade dialogue with the US and defense ministers of both countries that concluded a 10-year defense framework agreement and a renewal of that framework, basically. Meanwhile, President Trump has also expressed positivity in the talks between both the countries and an ease in doing business in future. Jaishankar is in Moscow leading the Indian delegation for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization's Council of Heads of Government meeting scheduled for November 18th and to be hosted by Russian Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin. This will include talks for the preparation for the 23rd Annual India-Russia Summit during Putin's visit, which is likely to be held on December 5th and 6th. Trade, energy, defense, logistics, and connectivity will be the topics of the summit. And now let's take a look at some other stories making news from across the world in World at a Glance.
As US Saudi Arabia work out last-minute details ahead of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to Washington DC on Tuesday, US President Donald Trump aims to deepen decades-old cooperation on oil and security while broadening ties in commerce, technology and potentially even nuclear energy. President also looks forward to talks on Abraham Accords and hopes Saudi to join the Accords to boost ties with Israel. It will be the first trip by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to the US since the 2018 killing of Saudi critic Jamal Khashoggi by Saudi agents in Istanbul, which caused a global uproar. As US House Republicans plan to vote on Tuesday on releasing the Epstein files, feud between President Trump and long-term ally Marjorie Taylor Greene has widened. Greene, who has questioned Trump's handlings of the Epstein files and his commitment on America First, was called Wacky Marjorie traitor Brown in a Truth Social post by Trump. He also said that no one cares for Greene and was the cause of all her problems. US President Donald Trump said he could have discussions with Venezuela leader Nicolas Maduro. Trump said he thinks Venezuela would like to have talks with the United States. Meanwhile, US Southern Command said US task force carried out a lethal strike on Saturday on a vessel operated by a designated terrorist organization in the Eastern Pacific. US has also built pressure on Venezuelan government, saying it will designate Cartel de los Soles as a foreign terrorist organization. This, according to President Trump, will enable the United States to target certain assets and infrastructure in the country. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he had signed a deal with France to obtain 100 Rafale warplanes as he seeks to bolster the country's long-term military capacity to fight Russia's invasion. Zelensky told French TV channel he had ordered 100 Rafale fighter jets. Zelensky is in Paris at a time when heavy Russian drone and missile attacks on Ukraine have increased in recent weeks, and Moscow has reported sharp ground advances in the southeastern Zaporizhzhia region.